All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Quick show of hands. How many of you guys have a blog? Okay, everybody. How many of you guys have an email list? Okay, everybody, sweet. How many of you guys have something to sell? Dude, everybody. Okay. Are you guys already making 60K? No. Okay. How many of you guys have services that you want to sell? Okay. How can you guys have products, services, and that's really amazing. Well, okay, so this is why I like webinars. I like webinars because it is the best way to make money online. I've done affiliate marketing. I've sold physical products online. I've sold info products. And by far, it's the best way to make money online. And you don't need an audience. You don't need a list. You don't even need a blog. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. So specifically, what I'm going to go over today is how to get people onto the webinar with Facebook ads, how to get people to actually show up to your webinar live, how to kind of structure the webinar for maximum conversions. And email is a big part of actually the sales process as well, and I'll show you some of my pre- and post-webinar sequences. Just want to talk a little bit about myself. All the businesses that I've ever created I've done so just so I could spend more time with family. So you'll never see me creating some sort of business that's going to hit like $100 million because I value my time a lot, and I really want to spend time with my wife and my kids. And the reason why I like webinars is because it's very scalable. You can easily reach out to a whole bunch of people right away, from the comforts of your own home. So I do all my webinars from my desk, and the money just comes in. It's pretty amazing. I run an online store with my wife at bumblebeelinens.com. This is kind of how we got started in the space. We made 6 figures in our first year of business, and this year we should hit 7 figures, I believe. This is my blog, mywifequitherjob.com, where I kind of document all of my experiences running our e-commerce store. And this should hit 7 figures this year as well. I run a conference, sellersummit.com, with my friend Tony Anderson. And it was really good. We did it for the first year today, and we're already selling tickets for next year. But the focus of today's talk is going to be about my online course. And in this online course, I teach people how to start their own e-commerce stores. And this is the course that I'm going to use as an example for all the webinars that I'm going to be talking about today. Anybody see my previous FinCon speeches from the previous years? Okay. So prior to, I'd say, last August, I was making course sales primarily from my email autoresponder sequence. And even today, I still probably generate maybe 1 or 2 sales from email alone. And it's very powerful. But for the longest time, I just didn't want to do webinars because I don't really enjoy public speaking. I don't really enjoy talking to a computer, like a webcam and a computer, because you don't get like the facial feedback. But recently, I think it was last FinCon, this bald guy here, does anyone know who he is? Grant Baldwin. This is just an aside. For the last 3 FinCons, I've got like the most actionable advice from like bald people. It's just random. I just thought about is anyone bald in here? Could you please stand up? What? Okay, we should talk after this. Actually, yeah. Incidentally, Noah. 2 years ago when I saw Noah, like I got nothing from you, but I think ever since you went bald, right? It's been all good. Anyway, so this is what happened. Grant, he went up to me and he said, "Hey, I've been doing these webinars, and I've been killing it." And he started with no list. He started with nothing, no website or no list. And he was showing me these numbers where he was generating 25, 30K a pop. And this was last year. I was with Bob, and we had lunch at FinCon over this conversation. And the prior year before, Bob, who's also bald, he actually helped me with my Pinterest strategy. And we were just chatting out in the hall just before this presentation. He helped me increase my Pinterest presence by 23x. So bald people, you guys rock. Tony was actually really important too because I still didn't want to do it despite hearing all the success from Grant, but she kind of pushed me into it. And in my very first webinar, all I did was I just pretty much blasted my list, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to do a webinar." I got 1,320 signups. 480 of those people attended live, and I got 60 sales at about $1,000 a pop. That's how much my course costs. And so that was essentially a payout of $60,000 in 90 minutes. And today, even though I dislike doing webinars, I do them once a month, and I generate anywhere from 30 to 70K each time I do it. So basically, I suck it up. All right, so when I'm talking to people about webinars, and I've been advising a lot more people to try these webinars, and this probably doesn't affect you guys because most of you guys have courses, most of you guys have services to sell. But in the event that you don't have anything to sell, you can actually easily create something on the fly. So what you can do is you can look at your talents and what you're good at, divide that up into 8 parts like a lesson plan, give away the first 2 on a webinar, and then charge them like $300 or something to get the remaining modules. So in fact, you can create your online course on the fly. And incidentally, this is how I launched my course. In 2011, I just sent out an email to my list. There was no Google Hangouts. There was no webinar software or anything like that. And I think I was using Ustream. And I just sent out an email and I said, hey, come on. I'm just going to show you a brief outline of what I'm thinking about selling. And I gave a very short presentation. I didn't even try to sell anything really. I just said, this is what I'm thinking about putting out. Here is the outline. And if you want, I'll give you lifetime access for the low price of $299. And I promise that I'll put something good together. And I sold 35 seats in 35 minutes. It was a very short webinar. And that was just an easy 10K. And it actually forced me to create a course. So for all of you guys who are having problems pushing yourself to create something, this is a really good way to kind of give yourself a kick in the butt. All right, so I just wanted to give you guys a little case study. So this guy, Ari, he's actually in my Create a Profitable Online Store course. Now, the course that I teach is about selling physical products online. But he actually came to me and he said, hey, I want to teach people how to make picture books. So this guy's an art major. Okay, Ari is his name. And he said, Steve, can you show me how to do a webinar? And I just want to see if I can put something together and generate some sales. And so what I said to him, I said to him, yes, I'm happy to help you. But I'm going to go ahead and have to revoke your Asian membership card right away. Because how many Asians do you know that are majoring in art? Right? I'm like, dude, next thing you're going to tell me that you don't even know that you're not good at math, right? So anyway, I coached this guy through kind of what I'm teaching you today. And he started out with a really tiny list. I think what he did is he combed his own Facebook fan page. He got a list of 80 people, just 80 people. And 60% of the people who attended live ended up purchasing his course, which was somewhere on the order of $200. And so he made $4,300. One webinar, nothing, tiny list. He's got no website, no audience, and he's a freaking Asian art major. So when I was kind of teaching him, one thing that he expressed concern to me about was, one, he was very worried that no one was going to sign up. So when he had this list of 80 people, he was terrified that, what if of those 80, no people turn up? I was worried that none of you guys were going to come to this talk, too. It's a very valid fear. So what I'm going to go over today, I'm going to hopefully dispel all these fears for you guys today. The tech is not a pain anymore because there's a whole bunch of software out there that will help you easily put together a webinar. This is actually a problem that I had when I was doing my webinars. I often feel like a fraud, right? You never consider yourself an expert in whatever you're doing. But you can't let that stop you from teaching because chances are you know more than the people that you're trying to reach. And finally, I'm an electrical engineer. I basically sit behind a computer. I was sitting behind a computer. I just recently quit. But I was sitting behind a computer just typing all day. So I'm not a salesman, not at all. I suck at selling. And so I'm going to talk about some of the things that I went through mentally to kind of prepare myself for the sales process. Okay, so I'm going to first talk about how to get people onto your webinar. And the first thing that you need is a landing page. And you can just sign up for lead pages, Insta pages, basic sign-up form here. I always like to have a countdown timer because it gives a sense of urgency for someone to sign up. And then bullet points on what you're going to talk about in the webinar, and then just a simple sign-up form. Now, if you already have a list, how many of you guys are on ConvertKit? ConvertKit. Okay. What I like about ConvertKit is that if you send out an email for people to join your webinar, you can make it so that all they have to do is click on the link in the email, and they're automatically added to the webinar list. Now, there's other email platforms that do that, but I don't think Aweber or MailChimp does that right now. And this is actually one of the main reasons I went to ConvertKit. Once I started doing webinars, because if you're driving someone to a landing page, there's that chance that they're not going to sign up, whereas clicking a link is that much easier. I'll get into that. Actually, I go cheap because I'm Asian. So I don't actually pay for any webinar software. I just use Google Hangouts and this live chat software called Chatwing. All right, how many of you guys have run Facebook ads? Okay, good portion of you guys. I'm going to talk about 3 different ways to run your Facebook ads, beginning with the easiest way, and then kind of like the more advanced way. And so I'm going to talk about the easiest way. This way is actually really hard to screw up. So if you already have a blog, you already have an audience, what you should do is you should create an ad that targets people who have already been to your website. They already know your face, they already know your post, they already know your content, and the likelihood of them signing up for your webinar once they've seen your ad is very high. And what you want to do for these particular types of ads, and you should also run these to your fan page as well, you want to make sure that you include your face on the ad. So for me, like my face is plastered all over my blog, and so it makes sense. As soon as they see your face, they're going to naturally click on it because they recognize you. So you should do the same thing. And when I run ads to people who recognize me, I generally pay under $2 per lead. Now, if you don't have a large audience and you want to reach out and gather more people to your webinar, what you can also do is run ads to what is called a lookalike audience. Now, a lookalike audience is when you upload an existing email list to Facebook and they find similar people to target for your ads. Now, when I run ads to a lookalike audience, I don't include a picture of myself because no one wants to see an Asian dude trying to teach people how to sell like physical knockoff goods from China or whatever, right? So in my experience, it's worked better when I don't include a picture of myself. And when I do things this way, I pay anywhere from $2.50 to $4.50 per lead. So that's what you can kind of expect if you're doing things in this way. But here's what I've actually been doing recently, and this has worked really well. Have any of you guys actually seen this ad on Facebook? Okay, so what I do today is I actually take a very popular post on my blog, and I pay per click, and I drive those Facebook ads to a lookalike audience, and I pay on the order of 7 to 9 cents per click for this article. And then people will read the post, they get to know me, they understand my brand, and then I run a webinar-specific ad just to those people who've clicked on this ad. Okay, and when you do the math this way, I'm paying 7 to 9 cents per click on this ad, but then because they know me, all of a sudden I'm paying lower prices to actually get them to sign up for the webinar. So it's on the order of $1 to $2 per click when I'm targeting people who have read this particular post. And I actually have a whole bunch of posts that I run ads to that are really good posts just to kind of get those retargeting pixels and create that audience that I know is going to be very high converting for my webinars. So incidentally, this is the way I do it today. I actually don't do the second method really anymore. All right, a couple of quick webinar stats. This guy's name is Omar Zenhom. He runs Webinar Ninja, which incidentally is the one that I've played with the most of all the softwares. So it's the one I recommend. A couple of things about webinar attendance rate given from the man himself, because he's got a bunch of statistics on this. The average attendance rate is about 25%. So of all the signups that you get on your email forms, about 25% are going to attend live. And then the conversion rate, and when I say conversion rate, I mean the people who actually purchase. A typical conversion rate will range on the order of 5 to 16%. And of course, your mileage is going to vary depending on your presentation and on your pitch. But one thing is for certain, the more people that you can get on live in your webinar, the better your conversion rate is going to be. And so that is why it is crucial to actually get people to physically attend your webinar live. So I'm going to give you some math here. Since we're going to be talking about Facebook, it's important to know what your break-even point is. And so I'm just going to give you the kind of economics and the calculations based on my course, and I'm just going to assume it's $1,000 here. If we assume that only 25% are going to show up live, and let's choose a lower-end conversion rate, such as 5%, that means in order to just break even on my Facebook ads, I can pay no more than $12.50 per lead when I run my Facebook ads. And ideally, I never want to pay more than half that amount because I want to at least make half of the profit on a sale. And of course, this is going to vary depending on how much your product sells. And depending on how much it sells and depending on how well you run your ads, you should come up with this number first on how much you're willing to pay before you even start running your ads. Okay, once you have gathered enough people to your list, I start this webinar email sequence. And typically when I'm going to do a webinar, I start gathering leads just 4 days before. Any longer than that, and the date of the webinar is too far into the future that people might not show up. And if you go any closer, you're not going to give yourself enough time to actually gather enough leads. So 4 days, in my opinion, has been the sweet spot, but your mileage will vary. And I send emails on every single day during those 4 days to kind of get people to go, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. So you start collecting emails, that means you do your Facebook ads 4 days before?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. But that one with the article, I have that running all the time because I'm constantly building that audience. Yeah. Unsubscribe rate for?
Like if you send somebody for?
No one unsubscribes. Yeah, almost nobody unsubscribes. Okay, so the main goal of this email sequence is to actually get people to attend live. It's also a way for people to kind of get to know me a little bit better. And sometimes I send out content, and it's also a way for me to demonstrate that I really know my stuff. And so this all occurs during this first 4 days. So the first email is pretty obvious. I need to tell them the exact date and the time of the webinar. And that's pretty much all I send in the first email. If you use a piece of software like Webinar Ninja, there'll automatically be links where you can click on it and add it to your calendar. But in case you want to do everything manually like I do, like I don't pay for anything, I use this tool called addtocalendar.com. It allows you to put links in your email so people can just add the date of the webinar to their calendar automatically. But you want people to add something to the calendar so that they have a reminder of when the actual webinar is, especially those people who are signing up 4 days out. In the second email, which usually goes out the next day, I provide an outline of what's going to be covered. And my main purpose of this email is to actually start a conversation. I'll often ask these people, what questions do you have about starting an e-commerce store? And I actually have people hit reply. And then I tell them that usually during the Q&A session after the webinar, I usually am flooded with questions. But if you hit reply and you give me the questions now, I will make sure that I will get to your questions and make sure that they get addressed at the end. And so that immediately entices them to start a conversation. And it also gives you a chance to get to see their names so that when they do come on live, you actually recognize them. And maybe you can call them out and say, hey, I got the answer to your question. If you wait until the end, I'll be there to answer it. I also ask them what doubts that they have. And the reason why I do this is because my product isn't cheap. Actually, today it's $1,200. And so I want to hear what doubts they have so that I can address them in the actual webinar itself if I can. Next email that goes out, I include a video that kind of introduces myself. I tell the story about how when my wife became pregnant, she wanted to quit her job. And the main reason why I started my e-commerce store was to, so that she could stay at home with the kids. Now, it's important, I think, to always have some sort of story for yourself, something that's memorable, and it's important to include that in a video so people can see how you talk, what your style is like, and that sort of thing. It also helps if you've done webinars or if you have existing students in your class to include some sort of testimonials for what you're about to teach to kind of get them excited about wanting to attend live. And, the whole purpose of this is to get the attendees to get to know you as a person so that they kind of recognize you when you come on, and it entices them to come on as well. And finally, the last email, I talk about all the freebies that I'm going to give away live. And I think it's important to give away some sort of thing during the live presentation to actually give them that last kick to attend live. So here's what I do. I give away 2 free 30-minute consults. And if they arrive live, and I have them do 2 things. I have them share a Facebook post as a contest entry, and I also have them leave a review on my podcast as a contest entry. Now, by nature of having them share a Facebook post, that actually makes my sign-up form viral. So what I'm actually having them share is a sign-up form for my email list. Okay, and so when a bunch of people share that, all of a sudden I'm getting all this reach for my sign-up form. And I usually get a whole bunch of email sign-ups during this period. And of course, I'm always trying to get podcast sign-ups as well because my podcast is a direct lead gen into my email list and my webinar flow. So it all feeds upon itself. I also give away some free software that I've demonstrated during the webinar itself. And I usually give away some free bonus informational content, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And sometimes I give away a gift card or something like that to just get some people in the door. You can try whatever you want, whatever you think is relevant for your product.
You're doing all of those or just one?
All of them. I'll show you. Yeah, I'll show you at the end. And then the day of, like I pretty much spam them, and no one really unsubscribes. So I send out a reminder 12 hours before, 1 hour before, 10 minutes before, and the time of the webinar.
What
Yeah.
if they opt in, like, with 2 days to go?
Yeah, then they don't get the first two. So yeah, I put those broadcasts on those in that order per day. Yeah.
Does that add to calendar automatically send these emails out for you?
No, you need an email service provider. I use ConvertKit for that. Yeah.
When they're getting your emails, do they pay at that point, or do they pay at some point?
No, they haven't paid yet. This is just, the webinar hasn't even happened yet.
So you don't have to pay in advance of
You don't have to pay to join the webinar. The webinar is free. And you want to emphasize that. And you also want to emphasize that what you're teaching is going to be really good, that you could actually charge for it. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about just style of webinar. When I was preparing for my own webinar, I actually watched a whole bunch of different people. So I watched Lewis Howes, I watched Amy Porterfield, I watched Michael Hyatt, and I watched David Siteman Garland. And everyone has their own unique style. And I'm going to talk about kind of what my style eventually evolved to be and what some of their different styles were. So a couple of these guys up here would talk about 45 minutes to just kind of build them up as an authority in what they were trying to teach, and then reserve just like the last 15 minutes of the webinar as like teaser content to get them to sign up. So basically, they don't give away that much content. A couple of these guys, they're very inspirational. Like Michael Hyatt, if you've ever watched one of his webinars, he's very inspirational, but it tends to be a little bit more fluffy in nature. And the way he sells everything is he gets people really excited and pumped. And then he talks about his program. But his webinars generally are not teaching sort of webinars. And another style, of course, is just to talk about people who've taken your class that are really successful and kind of use that as a way to get people to sign up. But the person I resonated the most with was Amy Porterfield. And the way she conducts her webinars is she gives away such good stuff. And she teaches so much, she provides so much information that this is what they think, right? That was some really good stuff. And I would have actually have paid for that content. And that's kind of my style, because I'm not really a salesman. I'm not really an inspirational speaker. And so teaching, like if you're uncomfortable giving a webinar, it's much better to just get up there and teach, because it's really easy to do. And here's the thing. When you do a really good job at teaching, what people start to do is they start to think that if the free stuff that you're giving out is so good, then the paid stuff must be absolutely amazing. When I try to get a new babysitter, I send them this image, because if the kids are so cute, they must be easy to take care of. All right, so I'm going to talk about the actual presentation itself now. And this took a little bit of work for me, but during the first 5 minutes, or first 5 to 10 minutes, is what I use to kind of put myself as an authority. So I'll talk about all my successes. I'll talk about my businesses. And the reason why I'm on the Iron Throne here is because you have to kind of psych yourself up and pretend that you're like the man and speak with confidence during that first 5 to 10 minutes. And you want to build yourself an authority as an authority, and you really want to pull out all the stops. So I always mention my wife because she's hot. And if I can get a woman as hot as her, that must mean that I know a thing or two, right? That's the logic there. So if you guys have a hot wife or a hot spouse, use everything at your disposal. So here's what my freebie page looks like. So right beneath the chat window, I have 2 blue buttons, and I already talked about these contest entries. One is to share the post on Facebook, and the other is a button that leads you to instructions on how to leave a review on my podcast. Okay, and incidentally, if you guys want to leave a review on my podcast, it's called the My Wife Quit Her Job Podcast. And if you go here, mywifequitherjob.com/contest, and enter, I will actually give one of you guys a free 30-minute one-on-one consult if you guys sign up. Once again, that's mywifequitherjob.com/contest. All right, so the guts of the presentation. After I'm done with the first 10 minutes, it's time for like the guts of the presentation. And this is where I teach my lights out. I don't actually hold anything back. A lot of people ask me whether, if I teach too much, that's going to be bad for conversions. And for me, that has not been the case. I literally teach the best stuff out of my course in the webinar itself, and it works. So don't hold back. That would be my advice. I like to keep my webinars very heavy on demos as well. And so I will physically walk someone through the exact process, for example, of how to find the right niche, to find the product that they want to sell. And here's the thing about webinars versus a live presentation. Here, you guys can focus on my face and my voice. But when you're on a webinar and your face isn't on there, all you're seeing is a screen. Okay, and so if you're just staring at a screen, it can get boring. And when things get boring, you go and you check your Facebook feed or you check your Twitter feed. Okay, and so if you don't want to put your face on the presentation, what I advise that you do is to include a lot of slides, like 70 plus, or even, I think Amy uses like 120 slides for like an hour-long presentation. And the reason is you want the attention to be constantly flipping. So I typically use maybe 60 slides, but I always put my face in the lower right-hand corner to kind of make it seem like a live thing, and people tend to focus on my face during the presentation. Yeah.
Is that a live video of you?
It is. It's a live video of me. Yeah, so I use Google Hangouts and then this other software to actually place my face in the corner.
What's that other software?
I don't remember. As soon as I said it, I was like, crap, I don't remember. I'll find out for you, though. It's free, though, because that's how I roll. Okay. Okay, so most people are fine during the whole teaching process, and then they stumble during the actual sales process. And I know from my first webinar, this is what I felt like when it came time to actually sell my product. Like, all of a sudden, I get like all mousy, and I'd be like, oh, well, I have this thing that I want to sell. I mean, it's really cool. You don't have to sign up if you don't want to, but I have this thing for sale, and you should check it out in your free time. And that's how I actually transition to the sales process. But really, here's what my mindset is now. If you've spent a good amount of your time teaching somebody really quality stuff on your webinar, you deserve to have their attention during the sales pitch. And if you did a good enough job, they're going to actually want to hear what you have to say. Okay? And so this is my mentality now. I was sent back from the future to frickin' close these courses. And this is the mentality I have now when I go through my sales process. So instead of getting meek, I actually get more confident during the sales process now. And that's kind of the mentality that you need to have as you transition. So I'll say something like, okay, you can take what I've taught you so far, and you can kind of stumble along on your own, but obviously I could not cover everything that would need to be covered in just 60 minutes. Okay, and so if you want to join me and a community of other students in the class where you can bounce ideas off one another, consider checking out my class, or else I will kill you. Now, finally, the last part of the presentation, after you've gone through your sales pitch, is actually the most important part, the Q&A. And here's what I advise. I think that you should stay on the Q&A for as long as it takes for you to get through every single question that you get. And the reason for that is if someone's sticking around all the way to the end, they're very interested in your product. And you don't want to turn them away at this point. You want to stay and answer all their questions. Use their name when you answer their questions. So remember, we were soliciting those questions via email. Use their name when you're answering this. Like, hey, Noah, I got your question, bro, and here's the answer. And then just make them feel comfortable and call them out. Here's something I also like to do, too. I pretty much know what the common questions are, or the common objections are selling my course. Like, how long does it take to make money online? Can everyone do this? What is the success ratio of the students that join your class? And so what I do is I kind of stack the deck. I already have prepared answers for these questions, and at the end of the presentation, I just go through my canned responses for those. And I just nip it in the bud, because I know people are going to ask these questions. Okay, so if you've gotten through your webinar, you should probably, if you did a good job, you should have gotten some sales already. But typically what I do is I close the cart 2 to 3 days later to give them some sort of sense of urgency that they're not going to be able to buy what I'm selling. And what I'm going to talk about now is the email autoresponder sequence that I have in place to kind of close the sale once the webinar is over. Now, here's the percentages of how it typically works for one of my webinars. Typically, 30% of the people who are going to sign up right during the webinar or during the first day. And then the second day tends to be a little bit slow, like in the order of 5 to 10%. And then almost every single sign-up always comes on the last day as things are going to expire. Yeah?
Do you ever consider giving a discount or any?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. I got a tiered bonus structure. I'll talk about that. I also bring people back through Facebook ads to watch the replay. Remember, only 25% of these people are showing up live, which means you're missing out on 75% of the people. And you want them to watch the presentation. So I'll email those people, and I'll also bring them back through Facebook ads. Okay, and so you just asked about the tiered offers. This is what I do. If you sign up before the webinar ends, I will give you a piece of free software. I'll give you a discount. And lately, I've been giving away a free virtual pass to the conference that I just ran a couple of months ago. Okay, so if you sign up before the webinar ends, you get all three of those things. Okay, but if you sign up by the second day, you only get the discount and the virtual pass, but not the software. And then finally, on the last day, you only get the discount. So I have senses of urgency for each one of the days before the close. And this works pretty well. Yeah? That's a good question. So for me, the discount works better. But yeah, you're right. Like I have tons of value bonuses I could give out, but there's just something about money that I don't know. You saw the T-bill or the C-bill.
And the discount is at 10%?
It's just $100. Yeah, just $100. So the first email that I send out, I try to get people back on the replay, and so it's just, all it is really just a link so that they can watch the recording. And what I usually do is I leave it up for just 24 hours because, again, I want to create a sense of urgency, and I want people to take action and watch that replay. Because if I leave it up any longer than that, people might put it off. Yeah? I do not, and I'll get to that in a sec.
What was the question?
The question was, do I give out the slides along with the replay? And I do not.
Okay.
Yeah?
Are you sending this out just to people who weren't on the webinar or to everyone else?
I send this out to everybody. Because what I found that people, even people who attend live, they like to watch it over and over again also. Because I tend to jam-pack a bunch of information in the session. Yeah?
You mentioned that you use Google Hangout. Is it true that Google Hangout is starting to refer to It's YouTube Live now?
Yeah, it's YouTube Live now. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I use YouTube Live. So, I mean, I don't want to get too technical here, but I have software that will stream it to the YouTube server, and then I go live. Yeah. So second email that I sent out, I don't send out the slides mainly because I'm constantly tweaking them in the background. Instead of giving out slides, I like to give a PDF summary of everything that I've talked about. And I find that it's much easier to digest the information as opposed to just give out the slides. I also, in this email, I usually talk about a lot of tools. As I mentioned, I walk people through the tools that I use in the process, and I have affiliate links. I also include more testimonials, and then, of course, a link to the sales page, telling them that one of the offers is going to expire soon in this email. I also filmed a FAQ video. So I've been doing this for quite a while. Once again, I know all the questions and all the objections that people have to signing up. So I put together a quick and dirty video that answers all these questions, and it's just me in front of a camera talking. And then I also provide a link to an in-depth walkthrough of the class. Now, you're not going to drop $1,200 on a class unless you know what it looks like on the inside. So I talk about all the features of my class and why it's better than every other class that is out there in this video. So they're getting a ton of information in this email. One thing I do want to mention also is that anytime you send out an email, there has to be something in it for them. So the subject line of these emails that I'm sending out always says, hey, here's more free material, here's another freebie. And so that way they're inclined to click on it, because they're getting more information. So third email, more freebies. This is when I get a little bit more in depth, and I actually talk about a student in my class where I actually went the extra mile to help a particular student. And so in my class on e-commerce, I actually do website critiques where I break down a student's online store and tell them how it can be improved. And I usually film these for every student in the class. And I go ahead and I give a link to a video where I'm actually critiquing a student and giving them my opinion and telling them the before and the after and how I increase their sales. This is actually very compelling. More testimonials. I also include a worksheet. So this is something I do also and that you can do. I demonstrate how to use a worksheet on the live presentation, but I don't give out the worksheet. I say I'm going to give it out via email, so that way they're waiting for this worksheet. And in this case, it's just an Excel spreadsheet that helps with the importing process. And then the fourth email, this is where I kind of appeal to their emotions, I want to say. So in this email, it's just very motivational. So I'll pick some of the top students in my class. I'll talk about their success stories. And this is Tony Anderson's store because she's one of my success stories. One thing I also like to do is, so I sent out a survey for my class, and this is really compelling too. And I found that of the people who have been in my class for over a year, who've actually launched a product, they're now making 4 figures per month at least. And 9% of these people are now making over $50,000 per month. And so I give out that statistic, and that kind of just blows people away to sign up. So if obviously you're not going to have these things early on, but these are just some things that you should add to your email autoresponder sequence as you have the data. Okay, I mentioned that I run Facebook ads to get people in. And I think someone asked whether I just run these ads for everybody or just a small subset. So for the people who don't show up, I send out a Facebook ad telling to watch the replay, obviously. And for the people who actually attended or clicked on the email to attend the webinar, I send them a special link to remind them that the discount is going to expire soon. These are very cheap emails because depending on how many people you have on your webinar, it's only going to cost you a couple bucks. So it's a no-brainer to run. And remember, only a small subset of the people are going to be actually attending live, and you want to gather all the people who didn't attend or didn't take any action. These are just a couple of little things that I do on my sales page to improve conversions. Countdown timers are very important. I've actually split tested this with and without the countdown timer. Makes a huge difference. I'm drawing a blank right now as to which plugin that I use, but if anyone's curious, I'll let them know which countdown timer. Yeah?
Is there a countdown timer option on ConvertKit? They do lead pages too.
No, ConvertKit just handles your email, so you'll need something else to do the countdown timer. I think that Timerlay is something that you can include a countdown timer in your email. So as I mentioned before, I always roll with a ghetto setup. So I just got a Logitech C920 webcam. I think this thing is $89. I use a Rode Podcaster microphone, but only because I'm a podcaster. But you could actually probably get away with the microphone that's built into your webcam. I have 2 $10 lights from IKEA that just kind of shine on my face. And then I have this CD jewel case because the tripod I bought is a little crooked, and it just kind of pops up. I can probably afford a new setup now, but I just used this ghetto setup for so long. Here's some stats from Omar of Webinar Ninja. So the best times to have a webinar are Tuesday through Thursday. I think Monday is when everyone's just kind of getting back into work, and there's the grind, and then Friday they're just kind of taking off. So Tuesday through Thursday are the sweet spots. Here's what I found interesting, actually. If you're giving a webinar and most of the people are going to be in the United States, it's best to actually have it start between 1 and 2 p.m. in their respective time zone, which is really counterintuitive to me, because that implies that they're watching this webinar at work. And so last time, I just gave a webinar just before FinCon, and I had it at 2 p.m., and I asked, are you guys at work? And they're like, yeah, I just have it in the background as I'm doing nothing, which is incidentally, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to talk about it at the end. And if you're in Europe, here's a surprising, if all your customers are in Europe, then they like to watch webinars in the morning, or they like to not work in the morning, I guess. So. All right, so you just asked about auto webinars. So I actually don't do these, but I've talked to several people who do these. So what an auto webinar is someone will sign up for your webinar, and essentially they're just watching a recording. Okay, so you can drive Facebook ads, and they can watch a recording, and it's completely hands-off. You make money as you sleep. But the problem with doing it that way is that the conversion rate is 2 to 4 times less. And so remember that math slide that I put up. You really got to do the math. And depending on how much it costs or how much you're selling your class for versus how much you're paying for a Facebook ad, you just got to do the math. So if it's 2 to 4 times lower, let's say it's 4x lower, that means like you have to be really, really awesome with your Facebook ads just to break even. So again, your mileage is going to vary. There's also this thing called semi-automated webinars where you play a video of your webinar, but then you kind of just show up at the end to answer questions. I've been thinking about doing this because I hate doing the actual webinar part, but what I found is that the Q&A portion, just like the pre-Q&A and whatnot, is just so important. And some people come back and watch the same webinar over and over again. And if they come back over and over again and they watch the exact same webinar where you're wearing the exact same clothes and everything, that just feels disingenuous to me. And if you're making a lot of money, let's just suck it up and do the webinar live. You know what I'm saying? Like if you have to spend time joining the Q&A, you may as well just give it live.